Well, here we are, season 3, and I'm so very excited about what we're covering in this season and the guests that we have. First of all, I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank everyone at Rogers London for being such a massive support of women's health and getting this menopause message info out there, since it's such a huge topic and still such an area of struggle for so many women that we really need to get it out to the masses all that we can. This season, the third season, we're talking menopause after surgery. We're talking menopause after breast cancer. We're talking weight and loving, or at least embracing our body despite menopause, celebrating this time of year. Many women think this is it, and it's the start of the downward slide once our periods stop. But do you know the number of amazing women in the world doing fantastic things after 40, 50, 60, and I must admit at 55, I feel I finally come into my own. So don't try to tell me that this is it, my friends. We've so much to offer the world. So one of our episodes is even dedicated to just that, with an amazing celebrant joining us to help us celebrate the journey of menopause. We'll also be talking the importance of the omegas for the menopause journey with a scientist out of the States. And we have a very energetic episode coming up with 2 amazing women on fitness and nutrition. We're going to get moving. And we have a naturopathic doctor coming to tell you what is what about hormones and hormone therapy, which has been a very big topic and question. So please don't keep this journey to yourself or this struggle. Please share as well this show with loved ones, with friends. Let's get the message out there. Lastly, I created this show because I've listened to so many women over the years and their struggles with this journey. And although we can't change it, we can have control over parts of it and what we do. Menopause used to be a time when women, really through the lack of knowledge, did feel they could do nothing and had to struggle with weight gain, lack of sleep, muscle weakness, sex challenges, and so many more things. But my friends, times are and have been changing. They still need to change more. So I wanted to do a show to help women at the very least, and those who love them, have a resource that they could watch, that if they have no support or no knowledge about anything, they could at least find out information. And from here, use it as a launch pad to know where they can go, who they can ask questions, or how to start very important conversations. Personally, I wish there were more conversations. When I speak one-on-one to women, an awful lot of them gravitate to this topic, this show, and what I'm offering, and yet they still speak as if they don't know what to do, where to go, where to look. And that is a huge reason I wanted to offer this show. So they have somewhere, you have somewhere to go as a launch pad and have someone that you can reach out to say, who do I ask? What do I do? And that someone can be me, and I can direct you where it is I think you could be helped. So please don't feel you're alone in any aspect of menopause. You aren't. Please don't think you have to suffer through symptoms. You don't. And if they can't be changed, there are ways to help you live despite them. There are so many women that I know thriving through the challenges of menopause because they figured out how to live through the symptoms. So please reach out to me. Let me help you or point you in the right direction so that you, my friend, can feel magnificent through menopause. So welcome to this episode, I think a very important episode. I'm interviewing Krista Ford today. Thank you, Krista, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Really grateful. I think this is a wonderful topic. She's a 42-year-old wife, mother of 2 boys. She was born and raised in a small town in Elgin County, and she moved back there after meeting her husband. She's a Fanshawe College graduate, self-employed bookkeeper, and brand ambassador for Canadian Health and Wellness Food Mix Company. And in her spare time, she's an avid audiobook listener, cross-stitch hobbyist, and foodie who loves to bake. That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Really grateful.
No problem.
Anything else you need me to add or you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Listen, so what we're talking about today is menopause as a result of breast cancer. So very grateful that you're here talking about this because I think it's a topic that a lot of women will have gone through and would like to know about.
Mhm.
So if you don't mind, let's start at the beginning. If you don't mind talking about your diagnosis and when you actually found out about the breast cancer.
Yeah. So I had a reaction in my arm, and my arm got really hot and puffy, and my lymph nodes got swollen. And as a result of that, my doctor scheduled me for a mammogram. First mammogram I'd ever had. Because of my age, it wasn't something that was on the radar. So with that, they sent me for a mammogram, and the results were there was nothing there. But because of my age, they wanted me to come back in 6 months for just a routine follow-up. And at that point, when I went back for my follow-up, they thought they saw something. So it was kind of emotional and nerve-wracking, but they opted to do a biopsy at that point, and the biopsy came back as positive for triple positive breast cancer. So there's different types of breast cancer. The way I like to describe it is it's like light switches. So there's hormone receptors and a protein receptor called HER2, and all of my receptors are turned on. So I was triple positive. You can have any combination of the hormone receptors or the HER2 receptors on or off. So,
wow. Okay. My goodness. That would have been a lot to digest, I'm sure, to put it mildly. I have another question for you, but I would love to talk about the emotional side of it, because getting news like that, again, if there's anybody listening, watching, how did you come to terms with that news? How were you able to handle hearing that news? What did you do to get through that time?
it was very shocking for me. We have no family history. I have no family history of breast cancer or any type of cancer at all. So
Right.
to have that type of a phone call, I'll never forget. I was driving home and my doctor called me and told me to pull over. And I'm like, that can't be good news.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult. And being self-employed, it was even more difficult to kind of wrap my head around, because, you know, things like EI and programs aren't in place when you're self-employed. So there was that type of stress associated with it as well, and knowing that I was going to have to take time off, and would I be able to continue working, and those kind of things.
My goodness. And on top of everything, the last thing you need is stress in your system.
Yeah.
So, my goodness. Okay. All right. So, my next question that I was going to get to originally was, can you tell us a little bit about your cancer journey? I take it it's still ongoing. So, anything you have to share?
Yeah. So after I got the positive diagnosis, I was referred to a surgeon to have a consultation, and I was prepared to go into that surgery saying, I will have a full mastectomy, like whatever needs to be done to preserve my health. But the surgeon felt that they could just do a lumpectomy, which was just removing the tumor. And they opted to take a couple of lymph nodes at the same time. So I had the tumor removed, and I had lymph nodes in my armpit removed. And all of that was tested for further pathology. And at that time, they found that there was a microscopic trace in one of the lymph nodes. So that dictated a lot of my treatment journey. If the cancer had been just in the tumor itself, I probably wouldn't have needed radiation. But because of the spread, they did want me to have radiation as well. So I had 8 sessions of chemotherapy. I went every 2 weeks for infusions, and I had 16 sessions of radiation after that was all finished. And as part of my treatment, I'm also having an antibody. Because I'm HER2 positive, there's an antibody treatment that needs to be done for a full year as part of preserving that, trying to turn those receptors off so that the cancer doesn't come back. So I go every 3 weeks still for that until January. And I'm also having, because I'm hormone positive, hormone suppression. They're suppressing my hormones right now because my cancer was basically feeding off of the hormones in my body and hormones in my system. So they've had to give me injections to turn that off.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask you. Is this all through injections, all of this treatment that you're having, or is that how it's all working?
Some of it is like intravenous injections. So I have a portacath in my chest that they access to give me. That's where I had the chemo. Not everybody has that. Some people have just through IVs in their arm or in their hand. But I had because of the long-term needing to have the antibody injections, it made more sense for me to get a portacath. So they give me, I go in and get hooked up to an IV bag and they flow through that way. The hormone injections, it is a needle. It is a big, scary needle that they inject into my abdomen every month. But
close your eyes and look away, and it's probably, is it one of those situations where you know it's coming? You know, when you know you're about to have a needle or something, you know it's coming. Yeah,
I've certainly gotten a lot more comfortable with medical procedures and needles and being poked and all of that stuff through this whole journey, and they're so good. I mean, the cancer clinics are so good. They deal with us all the time, and they really try and make you feel comfortable. You know, they give me an ice pack to try and numb the area first, and they do what they can to make it a little bit more bearable.
Yeah. You know what? And I think a shout out to the cancer clinics, right? And I think we're very lucky in London to have, I think personally, I feel all of the medical help out there is just wonderful for our city. But from what I hear with the cancer, it's just an amazing group of people. So shout out to them.
Yeah, it's awesome. It can be overwhelming. Like I had my chemo at a satellite clinic, and then I had my radiation at the cancer clinic here in London. And going in there the first time and seeing how many people are affected by this disease was really emotional and really overwhelming too.
My goodness. Now, and remind me, when was it that you were actually diagnosed? How many years ago? You're 42 now.
Almost a year ago exactly. It was August 31st.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, I got my diagnosis. I had surgery in September, and then 4 months of chemo and radiation. I finished everything in April of 2023.
Oh, that must have been a nice time of year for you, just to be over the hump of all of the initial.
Yeah, it was. And I don't think I realized how run down the treatments had made me until I started to feel better. Like it really does take a lot out of you, energy and stuff. I was still working part-time and trying to run a household and all of that. So I don't think I really realized how actually tired I was because I was just trying to push through until I really started to feel better.
Yeah. So my goodness. Good for you. I do want to, because we also want to make sure that women understand the menopausal side, because we want to explain to them, but also give them hope that there is support out there and everything. But I am very grateful for you being here and allowing me to interview you on this. Why is it that why was it important that you said yes to this? Because, I mean, there probably are some people that would like to keep the journey to themselves. And what was it? I was very grateful that you did say yes.
For me, at my age, I think it's about awareness. I wouldn't have been on anybody's radar to go for a mammogram if it wasn't for fluke set of situation that had me going for that, and diligence of my doctor not just dismissing. Because I didn't really have any symptoms. I had a slight pain in my breast at one point, but I just dismissed it to time of the month and didn't think anything of it and really kind of ignored it, which in hindsight was not the right thing to do. But I think being vocal about this and encouraging other women to not ignore their symptoms, talk to their doctor if something doesn't seem right, do self-breast exams, really pay attention to it, because early detection is so important. And in Canada, you wouldn't go for a regular mammogram until you're 50. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. You know, I think it's, I don't know about you. I know that sometimes we can perhaps feel that I don't want to bug the doctor. I've got this, but I'm not sure whether I should ask. Is it enough to go for a doctor's appointment? To that, what you're really underscoring again is the important point that nothing is ever too little, that if we're concerned about it, but we really have to take our health in our hands, in the sense that if I really do feel there's something, I'm going to go to my doctor.
Definitely. And for me, through this journey, I've connected with so many other women now that are in this situation, and it's quite alarming, the number of younger women that are getting diagnosed with this. Like,
Okay.
it's the statistics, I believe, are 1 in 8 in Canada for breast cancer. But I'm finding more and more people under the age of 50 being diagnosed with it. So it's important that, those self-breast exams, because that's kind of your way to make sure that you're okay, because
That's
they're not
right.
going to send you for something otherwise.
That's right. So that being said, let's talk about menopause now. And it's very interesting, especially when you say that more and more women are being diagnosed under the age of 50. So I think it's going to be very important. I'm really hoping that there's people that are watching that have people that are younger in their lives that say, you need to watch this episode, so that it's all about awareness.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your menopausal journey then, how it began. My take on it from the research that I've done is that the transition when you have or go into menopause as a result of something like this, it's a far quicker transition. You're just 0 to 60, you're in it. Whereas those of us who didn't experience that, we've had years and years. And, there's a lot of women that sometimes years and years of going through but it's taken a long while for the transition to happen. So can you tell me a little bit about that, about your whole menopausal journey, how it started, how it's been?
It was kind of a whirlwind. I went, because of my age, I was still on birth control. So I went from being childbearing age and on birth control. I was told to stop birth control as soon as I got my diagnosis because of being hormone positive breast cancer. And I went into basically chemically induced menopause in the span of about 4 months.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit, if you would, about the symptoms that you experienced.
Yeah, for me, a lot of hot flashes, and night sweats, a bit of insomnia, and the weight. The weight has been a big struggle. My metabolism is just all over the place, and some of that's from the medication of the chemo, still processing the steroids and the chemo out of my system, but just the weight gain, and then it's harder to lose that weight. And I'm having joint pain in my legs and my hips, so that makes it difficult to work out and try and do anything, like even just walking up and down the stairs a couple of times, my knees are screaming. So and the doctors have said that it's all because they've suppressed my hormone levels so much that it's basically, it's like arthritis now.
Yeah. Okay. What a lot to contend with, considering all that you've gone through anyway. Do they also offer the thought that keep moving regardless to help stay?
Definitely. I was trying to do some walking and some running, and they had suggested aquafit or water.
Great.
Would be easier on my joints, or possibly cycling. So I've actually started doing aquafit a little bit. And,
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What did you learn about let's start with, what did you learn? I think you've already touched on this, but let's start with the cancer process first of all. What have you learned about that, the process that you've gone through, but also still being a mother, still being a wife, still working? Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, I have to say, when I first got the phone call and I first got the diagnosis, I mean, my mind automatically went to every movie, TV show you've ever seen, and you see the really sick patient in bed that looks like they're dying. And that was my thought. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna be really, really sick. And that, fortunately for me, was not the case. My medical team was so good about medications and things to help out with not having a lot of symptoms and not being that run down. So I think there's a big misconception. A lot of times people assume that you're going to be really, really sick with chemo. And until I started to lose my hair, I think people probably didn't even realize, like, I was still functioning, and for the most part, I still looked good or normal. And then after a couple of treatments, my hair did start to fall out. So I had to shave my head because it was just too emotional to just have that falling out all over the place. So I opted to shave my head, and then I just kind of carried on, and, anti-nausea meds and all those things. And it does take a lot out of you, but I think that there's a lot of really good medications, and the doctors, they don't want you to be sick. They want you to try and get through this. So they're willing to do whatever they can to try and help with that.
That's amazing. What did you learn about yourself going through that?
Well, probably that I'm stronger than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Still running a household with 2 young kids and working and, having to get groceries and cook the meals and do all of those things and go to the Santa Claus parade and school functions and all of those things. You find a strength that you didn't know that you had, and you kind of try and power through as much as you can to try and keep things normal for the people around you too.
That's amazing. I totally admire you for that. I think that is so important in life to we on different levels, people have struggles, and it can be very, very easy with some struggles to live in them and to stay in them and what I've heard about this kind of thing is there's that I've had various family members struggle with cancer, and what I have seen in them is this resilience and this and I think being busy and I think having things to do really must help as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've come a long way with things like chemotherapy. I know that, again, one person in particular I'm thinking of, you never would have known if people didn't know that that's what he was going through. You never would have known just looking at him for the most part. So it's really good to hear. And again, I think that gives people hope to hear you say that, and you don't have to suffer, whereas years ago we really thought. How about things like, this is going completely off topic, but I think it is important to touch on. How about social media? Because again, there can be groups, and I do want to talk in a minute further about support. But when it comes to social media, there can be groups and there can be places you can go and look. But often those places can be very, very full of scary things and sad things and people really struggling. Did you find that helped you in particular?
Not everybody's experience is the same. Like, some people will have a different perspective on it. Some people try and take this with a grain of salt and move forward with it. Other people, understandably so, have a lot of depression. It's not something easy to go through.
No, I bet.
So yes, there certainly is both kind of sides of things online. So you do kind of have to navigate a little bit. For me, having positive people and being able to see other people that have come to the other side of this was really helpful. I was also a big advocate of counting down. Like, for me, being able to count down the treatments, count down how long everything was. I got to the point where I was like, I'm halfway there, or I've only got 2 more treatments. And that was really helpful for me to get through it and kind of measure it in some way.
Awesome. Okay, that's important. All right, so flipping over to the menopause side of things, what did you, as you experienced it and were put into, for lack of a better term, were put into menopause, what did you learn about the menopausal journey? What have you learned that you'd like to share with women that are going through something similar?
It's been interesting at my age because no one in my immediate circle, my friends, are there yet because I'm so much younger. So most people that can sympathize with what I'm going through are in a completely different age range than me. So I haven't found that there's a lot of resources out there for younger women going through it. And not all cancer patients, breast cancer patients, depending on their hormone status, would be going through this. So other cancer patients, if their journey has been different, if they are not hormone positive, they wouldn't be experiencing that. So for me to try and find people to connect with that are in my situation has been a little bit more challenging.
And did you find any?
At
all?
Few, not too many. Most other women did not have the hormone positive status that I did. So they are in a completely different, they finish their treatments and then they go back to regular, whatever their status was before that. So for me, just kind of trying to pull from what I can find in groups or just through research.
Okay. I listen to things like this and I always think because I'm always trying to think of how we can support people and stuff like that. And I think, wow, there's a need there, right there, because you're not the only one at this age who's gone through it or going through it or sadly will go through it, and to know that there's somewhere, not putting it on you, but to know that there's somewhere out there that women can go. I also think it's very important to, like, would you have been open to something like this if you were going through it or as you're going through it, if you were part of a group and it was actually older women going through menopause, would you have been, and you don't have to say, not on the spot, you don't have to say yes for the sake of it, but would you have felt you would have benefited if you were surrounded by women going through menopause at an older age, but you had a bit of their wisdom, you had their support, you had their knowledge? Would you have gravitated to that, do you think?
I think so. I think there's a huge amount in sharing of information. Like, if you don't know yourself, where are you going to learn? You learn from those around you that are willing to talk about it and share their story. And that's the other thing too, is I think sometimes people are, maybe younger people too, are a little bit embarrassed to talk about it or not as open to talk about what they've got going on. Whereas maybe women that are a little bit older have kind of been there and done that, and they're more comfortable in discussing it. So I think there is a benefit to women of all age being able to kind of share in that information.
You're right. I think we got to a certain age. I know I did, 25. That's a very old one. My son is rolling his eyes, I'm sure. But I know for me, you get to an age where certain things become very apparent as to what's important. And it can be very hard maybe it's not a good thing. It can be very hard to embarrass me anymore. So I think you get to a point where, that's where it is easier for the conversations. Having said that, I do know a lot of women still, and that's why I think this is so great. But that's why I really started the show, was because there's still many, many women that I know are struggling, because I hear from them, but they don't feel comfortable asking the questions still, especially on, the topic of sex and things like that. Mm-hmm. But to be able to change the conversation and to make it just such a part of every day where they don't feel like they're complaining and they're getting information and they're sharing and learning from each other. That will be a beautiful thing when people feel that comfortable to do it that regularly, I think. Definitely. So where did you find the most amount of support? And like, what have you leaned on, and who have you leaned on, and who have you found has been very helpful that you could share?
Probably my mother and her own journey, and the doctors actually at the cancer clinic have been, as I've brought up symptoms and things, they've been sympathetic and offered suggestions or things that they feel might help, probably through their own journey, because they're older women, the doctors that I've dealt with. So just through the few conversations, I haven't had a lot of people reach out to me or anything like that, but
yeah. Okay. No, that's really good to know. What are some of the things you wish that you had known, whether it's to do with the breast cancer side of things or the menopausal side of things? What do you wish you had known? And I know you've already touched on a few things, but let's go through them again. What do you wish you had known?
For me, one of the biggest things was not having any experience with cancer. I assumed that once I finished those chemo treatments and rang that bell, that I was done and that I was just going to be able to go back to my normal life and put all of this behind me, and that things would just, over time, bounce back to normal. I did not realize the amount of follow-up and further tests and treatments, because of my particular breast cancer status, having to continue to have the injections and the infusions and things like that. But I've had bone scans and follow-up mammograms. There's been so much medical stuff that has still continued on after that. I was not aware of that. And when they told me that all of this stuff was still going to have to happen, and some of it for up to 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
I was really overwhelmed by that. Because of my age, I'm in a bit of a, as they called it, a gray area. Women under 40 are treated a different way with breast cancer, and women over 50 are treated a different way because of their hormone status, because of how close or far they are from menopause. But when you're in your 40s, it's a bit of a gray area, and there's not as much definitive rules on which ways to kind of treat some things. So
that is very interesting to know. That's a very interesting point to know. All right. So with menopause, you've got your flipping back to menopause in particular. You have your symptoms, the things that you've learned about menopause. What do you wish you had known with regard to menopause before, or learned, known, found out, but known to even find out? We don't know what we don't know. So,
well, in relation to, I remember hearing my mom complain about hot flashes, and I really did not sympathize with her. I didn't know what that meant. And now, having gone through that and going through that on a regular basis, and, you know, sometimes up to every couple of hours having a hot flash, oh my gosh, it's just,
oh, wow.
I really understand. And I feel for anybody that goes through that now, because it's such an overwhelming feeling. And for me, I almost feel like a sense of anxiety just before the hot flash comes on.
Okay.
So it can be a bit disruptive when I'm trying to do things and trying to focus on things.
Do you mean you all of a sudden will feel anxious and then you realize that and then you have a hot flash?
I read about it online. They called it auras. Like some women experience auras before they get the actual heat sensation. So I am in tune and I can feel that. So I can feel them coming, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of when you're in a situation, if you're in like a meeting at work or you're in something, you know it's coming, and you're not in a situation where